Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and as always, this is my co-host and co-doppelganger, Matt Freeman. Matt, how's it going today?
Hello, Scott. Please be here.
You know, I was thinking of writing to tell you to do that in the script, and then I was like, I know Matt. I don't need to tell him to do that.
Yeah.
He's going to just know.
Of course.
And you did not let me down at all.
Of course. Return that serve.
This week on the show, we were actually planning on doing something else, but Matt and I just could not stop talking about Jordan Peele's new movie. So we made a decision to change up our plans at the very last minute, and we're going to sit down and talk all about Us, the movie, not us. We do that enough as it is. We don't need to talk about us anymore. So we're going to talk all about Us. We're going to review the movie and really dive deep into it. And we're also going to spend a little bit at the end of the show talking about Apple's big streaming service announcement that happened on, I think it was Monday. On Monday. And we're going to talk about the state of television after that big quote-unquote game-changing announcement. So I think it's going to be a good show, Matt.
Yeah.
I guess we should note that our Us discussion will have spoilers, but we're going to start, as always, with a non-spoiler kind of overall high-level review of the film, and then we will move into our spoiler section after that. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you're safe to listen up to a certain point, and then we'll let you know when you should stop doing that. All right, so let's talk about Jordan Peele's Us.
To take the dent out of the bag.
That's a classic right there.
What does I Got 5 on it mean?
It's about drugs.
It's not about drugs. It's a dope song. Don't do drugs.
Get in rhythm. There you go. There you go.
I guess the first thing I'll say about that movie is that y'all were just telling me that I should go see it. And I, like, for some reason, and this is actually kind of weird, had not seen a single trailer. I hadn't seen even like an ad, really. All I had seen is like posters of, people with like, there's like the one with the mask. And I'm like, okay, it looks kind of creepy, but it's just a poster. I don't know anything about it.
Did you even have the premise in your head?
No, I didn't even know it was a doppelganger thing, which that's in the trailer, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the basic setup of the movie without.
Yeah, I guess I'm just making the point that it was actually kind of awesome to go see a movie knowing zero information. That I haven't done that ever.
Yeah, I mean that's often the only time I really get to do that is when I'm at film festivals, because it's just I at least know the premises. Like I choose the movies I'm going to based on a 3-sentence blurb in a magazine or a website when I'm picking which movies I want to go see. But I guess I can't help but watch trailers. And I think I justified in my mind of being like, well, I have to do this to be up on the pop culture stuff so I can talk about it on this podcast. But I really feel like that's just me bullshitting, and I just really like trailers.
Yeah. I mean, one interesting thing is, like, this is horror. So it was way scarier for me not having any idea, like, what ballpark of stuff was going to happen. Where are we going here? Like, even the very beginning, you're just like, what direction is this going to become really bad in? So I was way more tense than I would have been otherwise. And I see that as a potentially a positive thing. So I might,
Yeah, I think so.
might try to milk this concept of avoiding trailers for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to do it, but I don't think I have the willpower.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, let's set up the basic concept of this movie
Sure.
and then kind of dive into it. So the premise of this movie is a family led by a woman named Adelaide and her husband Gabe, who are Lupita Nyong'o and Winston Duke, are visiting their summer home for the weekend. They go to the beach, they go home, and then when they're about to go to bed at night, they look outside and they see a family creepily standing in their driveway. And it turns out that family looks just like them. And that's the premise. That's all we're gonna say in the non-spoiler section.
Plot wise, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is basically a home invasion movie, right?
Yeah.
Which it's not all it is. And one of the things I like about this movie is just when you think you understand what it is, it kind of goes in a different direction and it surprises you. But that's the basic premise of this movie: is it's a home invasion movie with a twist. And in that regard, I really enjoyed it as just like a Jordan Peele playing in a genre of horror that I quite like. There's a movie called The Strangers, is the one I think everyone goes to when they think of home invasion horror. That's really fantastic, and this definitely channels some of that.
Yeah, I would say that it shifts gears several times. You know, it's got several distinct parts to the movie, maybe even acts, although I haven't really thought through whether the typical definition of an act break applies, but several distinct parts that all feel very different from each other.
Sure.
Like, people have remarked about this movie that this is a funny movie, and there's definitely stretches of this movie that are not funny at all, and there's
No.
and like it would be really weird and like jarring for there to be a joke in that part of the movie. But then there's other parts of the movie where it's just pretty funny. You're laughing, and so like the movie really successfully is able to navigate this space of tone and sort of even genre in places. I don't want to elaborate on that without spoiling. But it definitely stretches your conception of what a horror movie can be, and I think that's kind of one of the major selling points for it. Is this? It's really a very novel and creative thing, actually.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess what was your overall opinion of the movie? Like, how did it work on you overall?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I loved it. I don't think I even have any real like criticisms, honestly. Like, even the things other people I've seen other people complaining about, I'm like, no, that was fine, and I actually kind of liked the way they did that. Like, there were maybe there were things that I wouldn't have done that way, but it's like, well, why would I want every movie to be what I would have done? It was great. Yeah, I loved it. What did you feel about it?
I adored it. It is probably the best movie I've watched this year so far, and I know we're only in March, so that's not saying a lot, but I would be very surprised if this movie has gone down in my estimation by the end of the year. I thought, Jordan Peele is such an interesting guy, and I've liked him for a very long time. I watched his show Key and Peele. I've seen every single episode. I've rewatched his episodes. I find his humor amazing. And the one thing we saw, I think, in Key and Peele was also like he has this mastery of tone, and we saw that in Key and Peele. Like, a lot of his skits did have horror elements in it and did have like fancy directing elements in it. We saw that in Get Out. And then I think this is him just kind of doubling down on it. And it's not like there's that term sophomore slump, that you've made this your big hit movie, and then like the pressure's on, and so you go into this other movie and you just kind of fumble it. And I don't think he did that. Not only did he not fumble it, I think this is a more ambitious movie. This is a much bigger movie. It is much more complicated than Get Out, and I don't mean that to disparage that movie at all, because I think Get Out is a great movie. But there's so much more going on here. There's so much more to dive into, and there's so much more to think about thematically and filmmaking wise and detail wise. And I think it's very, very fitting that we just talked about The Sixth Sense last week, because I think this is a movie that is similar to that movie in that there's so much care and time taken to detail things that don't become evident on your first watch through and don't become evident until you see the whole scope of what the film is doing, and then you look back and see, oh yeah. I get it now. It's very similar to Sixth Sense in that regard.
Yeah, right. I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's one of those movies where I saw it a week ago, and I'm still noticing in my own mind, and also seeing people's takes online and being like, oh yeah, wow, and little things that you're just like, oh, that's so thoughtfully done, and it gives you a new little thing to chew on and a new little thing to think about, and it's not even just like, oh yeah, that was kind of clever the way that was done. It's like oh, the implications of that to like think about on like the metaphor level and the plot level, and yeah, just incredible care taken in it. And I mean, I actually think Get Out had an incredible level of care taken in the details, but I think the thing that makes this movie kind of transcend that one is that it's operating on this extra metaphorical level that is actually not too well overly specified by the movie.
Yeah.
Like the movie's letting you figure it out, and that's actually, to me, way more fun.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Get Out, for all the greatness that it was, you left the theater saying, I know exactly what this movie is. I know exactly what this movie was saying. It is not kind of hiding its themes and its meaning and the things that it's discussing.
Mm-hmm.
This movie, I walked out of this movie kind of going,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the more I've thought about it, and the more I've read about it, and the more I've seen and read about details that other people picked up, the more my opinion on what the central metaphor, or frankly, metaphors of this film is. But yeah, it is. I think Jordan Peele said he wanted people to walk out of this movie kind of saying to themselves, what did I just see?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is very obvious in how he did the movie. And I think the movie is better for it. I don't like to, like, I know we're comparing it to Get Out a lot, and I think there's a natural like want to compare the movies. I don't want to get too carried away with that, but I do think I enjoyed this movie better. I think he's getting better at filmmaking, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like Get Out quite a bit, but I definitely didn't think about it like every day for the next week,
right?
Like I have with this movie, where like just in free moments, I'll just be like, oh, wait a minute, yeah, that was, and that's like to me, that's like the best kind of movie personally, and just something that I can chew on for a while.
And I saw a critic who did not like this movie say this phrase that it's actually really going to annoy me, and I don't know why I'm repeating it. I do have a point, but he said, Jordan Peele is not the next Spielberg, more like the next Shyamalan. And he said it like in a bad way, like that's bad like to be the next.
Yeah, as if that's pejorative.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And first of all, we need to stop doing that to directors. Like Jordan Peele is not the next Spielberg. Jordan Peele is not the next Shyamalan. Jordan Peele is the next Jordan Peele. Mm-hmm. And he's very obviously has things he's interested in talking about and discussing, and a way of doing it that are unique to his own. But like we were just talking about with The Sixth Sense, I do think there is a similarity to the level of detail in Shyamalan. One of the things like sometimes I love Twitter. I saw Shyamalan tweet that he was so happy for Jordan Peele because this movie made a crap ton of money last weekend. It was the highest grossing original live action film since Avatar, which is crazy.
Since Cameron's Avatar, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Not Shyamalan.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And that's crazy for a horror film that is usually a niche genre that kids don't go to very often. That's amazing. So Shyamalan was congratulating him, and Jordan Peele responded with a gif of like a 90s cartoon or 90s like public service announcement that was just like, I learned it from watching you, which is like, it's just this wonderful little moment between filmmakers. But I mean, I'm not going to call Jordan Peele the next Shyamalan because Shyamalan's a unique director, Jordan Peele's a unique director, but I do think there is a attention to craft in those two movies, and maybe it's just because I have Shyamalan on the brain right now, but that I just loved. And I wish we could stop saying things like this, but I do think like maybe the reason why I'm enjoying Jordan Peele's work so much is for similar reasons to why I enjoy Shyamalan's work so much.
Yeah, like I think I mean, he wrote this, right?
Yes.
So I think that's actually what excites me about both of them. I mean, Spielberg is a great director, but I don't know if he's a great writer. Like, I don't know which of his movies he's written or had a hand in writing. Whereas Shyamalan has written almost all of his movies, and like that's the stories are generally what I love, and then yeah, he executes it perfectly. And these two, Us and Get Out, are these great stories where even if it were like a book, you would be like, oh my god, this is it's just a great story. It's just great, and then it's great, and then he has fantastic storytelling instincts. He has perfect instincts of in a directorial sense, how to bring out the feeling of the scene that he's written. And I guess I just have a soft spot for writer directors because I feel like the end product ends up being that much more kind of cohesive and intentional. So yeah, I mean, if that's something that him and Shyamalan have in common, sure, yeah, I like that about both of them. Yeah.
So I want to talk. We can't go into details yet, obviously, but you were talking about how funny this movie was, and it is very funny. It is also very creepy, and it's a lot of other emotions.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to wield those two things in the way in which Peele does, I think, cannot be understated. It is very hard. Like, you don't want the movie to be too funny. You don't want the movie to be too scary. And the way he manages to do both of those things at the same time, like Winston Duke plays the husband, Gabe, and he's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, he's so funny. And it's crazy because he's such a different character than his Black Panther character was. Like, it's night and day.
Yeah.
Like, at first I didn't recognize him, and then I was like, oh, wait, yeah, that is the same guy. And he's so funny, and he's really, I mean, I think every character gets moments to be funny in this movie, but he in particular like carries us through some of the funniest parts.
Sure. Well, he's sort of the comic relief in the sense where he's often the butt of the joke that he's involved in.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, he's I would say he's the comic relief family member.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then, oh my God, let's talk about Lupita Nyong'o forever.
Yeah.
This is a crazy performance. This is two crazy performances. She plays, obviously, each of these actors has to play two versions of themselves. But Lupita is at like the center of this movie. She's in just about every shot. And she has to do so much and sell two completely different characters, and even more complicated stuff. And she blows me away. Her ability to endear you to this character, it's phenomenal. And even as weird stuff's going on, you're just in with Adelaide.
Yeah.
You're just in with her.
Yeah, no, I couldn't say enough positive things about all the performances, and yeah, she carries. Well, okay. Usually, when you say somebody carries the movie, it implies that the other actors weren't doing their job, right? But
yeah,
everyone was firing on all cylinders. But the movie does hang entirely on her, and she completely nails it. It's unbelievable. Actually, I really want to see this movie again, and I think you've said that you do too. Yeah.
I was hoping to see it before we recorded, but oh well. I guess that's one really, I think the last thing I want to say before spoilers is just in a home invasion type movie, one of the most important things is that you are emotionally invested in the family, right? Mm-hmm. You need, in order for the tension to work, in order for you to care, you need to be emotionally invested in this family. And I think that's one of the things Peele does so well, so efficiently in this movie, is you learn to really like this family. And he uses humor in the kind of way that just endears you to them, because like very earlier in the movie, this isn't a spoiler, but very earlier in the movie, Winston Duke's character buys a boat, and he's so excited about his boat, and everyone else is making fun of him. Like all three other members of the family think it's silly that he bought this boat. And that just like gets you in, you get to understand the family dynamic a little bit, how like he's the kind of the goofier dad that the rest of the people go, huh? And the mom is a certain character, and each of the kids have their own very clear things. And the movie very efficiently sets them all up, sets up their dynamic, makes you understand how they operate, and get a little window into what their normal life is. So the second people appear in front of their house, suddenly, like, you care. Like, I found myself genuinely nervous. I was like, oh my God, are one of these family members going to die? I really really don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
And that is so important.
Right. And I don't know. I mean, again, I didn't know anything about the movie, so at that point, at that scene, I was like, oh no, isn't the next thing that usually happens in these movies like something horrible happens to prove the situation is serious and that the stakes have escalated?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, because just like you said, you love them all, and you get little moments with each of them to emphasize that. Even the teenage daughter who's a little bit on the bratty side, like you see a little bit of her complexity and humanity where it's not just like the archetype of the bratty daughter. It's she's a character. She's a full-fledged character.
Yeah. And I think in a movie like this, there would be a tendency to not do that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is Lupita's movie. Like, she is the central character. The metaphor of this entire movie hinges on her. They could have kind of shortchanged the rest of the family, but they don't. And that's what moves it from just good to great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Along with a bunch of other stuff we have to talk about in spoilers. Do you have anything else you want to say about the movie before we move to spoilers?
No, just definitely go see this one. I mean, this is among the highest recommends that I've like given on this show ever.
Oh wow, I didn't realize it's that high. That's great.
Yeah, I know. Like, I rarely see a movie where I'm just like, that was amazing. I have no problems. I have things that I would have done differently, like I said, and that's always fun to think about and talk about. But that's not the same thing as saying like, he messed it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, go see it.
All right, starting right now, it's spoiler time. Okay, Matt. So, like we were talking about, this is a movie that like about every 20 minutes expands its scope.
Yeah.
Because we have like the movie, we see the family and we think, okay, home invasion movie. These people are going to try to break in the house and kill them. And that seems to be what's happening. And then suddenly they're all sitting at a couch staring across from each other. And you're like, oh, wait, no, this is something different. Then they defeat the family and escape and run to their friend's house. And you're thinking, okay, this is something else. And then suddenly there are other doppelgangers in the movie's like, oh, wait, it's more than just this family.
Right.
Scope expanded again. And then Peele pulls back even further to make this a worldwide thing. And then suddenly you realize you're just not the movie you expected to be in at all.
You basically go from it sort of starts out as a fairy tale and ends as a fairy tale is how I would put it, because the whole beginning sequence of the movie, which by the way, for me not knowing what this movie was just like incredibly tense. Where it's just you're following this little girl as she's wandering away from her parents. By the way, at that point, I was like, she deserves whatever happens to her for wandering away from her parents, because it's horrible. And goes into this like Wonderland thing, and it's like, yeah, this feels like a fairy tale. It's even got fairy tale tropes in it. Like it's literally it's Little Red Riding Hood or whatever. Like she's got the apple that she drops, and it like the imagery is all very Brothers Grimm, and then she encounters something terrifying, right? Something so terrifying that it like derails her life, but you don't know what it is, and that's just an awesome story thing, is to just be like, what was it? What did she see? And like, I mean, I know that it's probably obvious what she saw if you saw the trailer, but it wasn't obvious to me that was just a doppelganger, and that's what messed her up,
Right. Oh yeah, I hadn't thought, like, obviously, yeah, I knew that this was a movie about doppelgangers. So when I saw the version of her standing the other way, I was like, oh, that's her doppelganger. But I guess, yeah, you had no idea what that was. That's really cool.
I mean, obviously she looks the same from behind, but for all I knew, her face was going to be monstrous or something. Like, yeah.
Well, and that's another thing that I've noticed that movies do, and I really need to stop falling for this, but like both this and The Sixth Sense, sorry to keep comparing it to Shyamalan, like cut in the middle of a scene before the end part of the scene happens. And I really should be like, my brain should really go, they didn't finish that scene. Like Bruce Willis is sitting on the bed with a bullet wound bleeding. Then they cut away. Oh, don't worry, he's fine now.
Yeah, he turned out fine.
And this movie kind of does the same thing. It's, she's staring at a different version of herself, and then we cut away, and Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she's good.
Right.
I mean, she's not good. Obviously, she PTSD.
Traumatized. But at least in this movie, she tells the story and says that she ran, which is either a conscious lie or like a story she's made up to be okay with herself. Which one cool thing about the movie is that you can interpret it either way, or you can even say those are both great interpretations. I love both of them.
Yeah. So that's let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because let's kind of I want to get to the metaphor stuff in a bit, but I want to kind of dive into the details first. So the big twist of this movie is that I think we both either didn't see coming or figured it out like only moments before the movie shows you.
Yeah.
Is that Adelaide and Red, which is the name of her tethered version, switched when she was a child. So that the scene when she went into the the mirror house, they switched. Her tethered version grabbed her and pulled her underground and then took her place. And then that's why she couldn't talk, because she couldn't talk, and she lived out her life. And yeah, the one of the big kind of open-ended questions of this movie is, did she have that memory the whole time, or was that a realization, something that she had blocked out of her mind, that she came to realize by the end of the movie when we see the flashbacks to that moment.
Are you seeing Adelaide uncover these memories, or is the movie just telling us that that's what's going on and that she's been aware of it the whole time? Because she go ahead.
Well, to me, and this is only because it supports the one of the metaphor reads of this movie I like, but to me, I like it better as her coming to realize this as the events of the movie are going on. That moment of the very moment at the very end of the movie where they're driving away in the car and her son obviously has put together who she is and as she is, and that smirk she gives him, that is her. She comes to realize it. We see the flashback, and then she gives her son a little smile. I think to me that's her rediscovering it, because I think her ability to forget that part of her life is important to what the movie is saying overall.
Yeah, she's taken ownership over the original Adelaide's life to the extent where she can't even let herself think about the fact that she stole it.
Yeah.
And which is I think the right way to put it. Like, she stole someone else's life, and that other person is now suffering terribly, and the only way she can go on with her life is to just convince her, is to just not remember that. Like, if you're going about your good life, but you're forced to remember every moment that the person you replaced is underground suffering, then you can't really enjoy it. So you have to kind of break. And I think there's textual support for that view, actually, that she, like, so for example, when she goes down into the room where there's the dancing studio, the mirror and the bar, and like she's looking around and she kind of looks in the mirror and kind of has a sort of flashback and sees herself dancing, and then, but it's like she kind of flinches away from that before it gets anywhere, like she's clearly avoiding thinking about that, and to me that means she's avoiding thinking about this past that on some level she knows she has, but that's the thing, is is it literally repressed memories, or is it just like it's so buried that it might as well not have happened? I don't know.
See, I think it's the latter, because I think one of the reads of this movie is, so there's this group of underground people. They are copies. Every single human being has a tethered version that is underground that suffers. The movie says every time something good happens to one of the people above ground, something terrible happens to one of the people below ground. You eat some nice food above ground, person below ground's eating some raw rabbit. We see textual evidence that person up ground is getting plastic surgery. That's what Elizabeth Moss's character is, just getting little nips or little tucks. We see her tethered version has slashes across her face. So it's, this general idea that for everything that you have, someone else is suffering for it. And that, I think, is one of the central metaphors of this movie that is I think very anti-consumerism, that this is a not everyone can win. Every time you are benefiting, every time you have things, you spend your money on things, you buy things for yourself, you have good things, there are people because of that are suffering somewhere else. And they are underground, quote unquote, but they are buried. They are people that we ignore. They are people that we push to the side. They are people that I think Jordan Peele calls the underground area the underpass, Matt, which is not very subtle. Like, I mean, that's like homeless people live under underpasses. So yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the big metaphors of the story. And I think it is important that our main character is actually someone that escaped that and assumed the role of everyone else. And to me, it is important that then she then forgot about that past, because I think that shows that not only does it show that the whole thing about us is that we're all the same. When you're doing this to yourself, basically. But it also shows that even the people that manage to escape from that system are still only doing it at the expense of another person, and they very easily are able to just become like those other people. That they are just like that they can just assume the role and become just like everyone else, and push those memories away to where just like everyone else, they don't notice it either. Yeah.
I guess like the most like non-specific but to me powerful message would be just that we're really good at looking away from the things that we don't that are really, really inconvenient, or that would make us like almost be compelled to change if we looked at them straight on. I think almost regardless of whether you accept the message of like everything you buy means someone else is suffering, I'm like, well, I don't personally think that's true, but that doesn't like mean that I disagree with the movie. I actually agree that very often we're creating suffering with a lot of different choices that we make, and we're really good at ignoring that because it's painful, or we view it as impossible to actually look at that suffering. And I also love the idea that the person who you're making suffer is actually you. Like when you, this idea that when you for example, when you get plastic surgery or whatever, like you're doing it because you want to you want other people to like you, right? And it's like on the metaphorical level, isn't that basically mutilating your soul or whatever? Like I kind of love that kind of it's almost like spiritual. Like it's a really cool idea.
Well, and I really like this idea that like that the movie makes you confront the truth that the people that you hurt are truly no different from you. I think like that's the brilliance, I think, of the Adelaide twist, is that she, like, it's very easy to otherize. Like one thing that the movie does very early on is kind of otherize the tethered versions, right? They're monstrous. They grunt instead of speak. The Winston Duke's one has a much bigger beard. He's the same size, but he holds himself so much more lumbering, right? They are monstrous, but we see that their monstrosity is only a byproduct of the suffering that they've gone through. This is not something that's natural. This is not something that's like natural. Like this is not something that is just, oh, it's just happened to them. It's a byproduct of their suffering, and they prove that by Adelaide escaping from that place and is a quote unquote normal topsider.
That's
so. I mean, it kind of forces you to like the instinct is to want to otherize this people, and that's another part of the twist that I thought was so brilliant. Is we want to otherize them. We want Red to be the bad one because she's the one doing all the bad stuff. She's the one. We find out at the end of this movie that she is the instigator of this whole thing. It's her fault, and we want to call her the bad one. But we learn that she was a victim first. That she had her life stolen from her, just like everyone else had their lives stolen from them. And actually the one who's responsible for that is the one we've been cheering on the whole damn movie.
Yeah, right. The protagonist is the villain, and I mean that's normally that kind of twist kind of breaks the movie, but in this case you're like, yeah, I mean that certainly gives me a lot to think about. But it's just a very deep and rich metaphor at this point
Yeah.
where you're like, well, I mean, we are. It's kind of almost like we are all simultaneously the person who's responsible for suffering and the person who is suffering.
Right. That's why. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there is an antagonist and a protagonist.
Yeah.
Like, well, there are antagonists and protagonists, but I don't think there's a good guy and a bad guy. Right.
Yeah.
We are both. We are both the dark sides of ourselves and the good sides of ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's more about this just like terrible system that's arisen, and you know, to your point about othering and like making the tethered family out to be terrifying and villainous and evil. I just read this actually, and this is not something that occurred to me at all during the movie or at any point during the last week. But there's actually no point in this movie where any of Adelaide's tethered family make a overt effort to kill any of their counterparts.
Yeah.
Like the daughter chases her doppelganger. The son just kind of wants to play with his doppelganger. The husband takes his out on the boat, and I guess it's implied he's going to kill him, but we never actually see it. And Red just kind of messes with Adelaide for the whole movie.
Right.
And like going up to that scene where she's just like dancing around her, where it's like, if you wanted to kill her, it seems like she could kill her.
She could have killed her. Like, they could have killed all of them like 20 times. You're absolutely right. It is do any of the tethered of their family kill anyone during the course? Well, yes. Right. I think her daughter kills the neighbor. Right.
Yeah. That does happen. But not their counterpart, which is
different from every other tethered we see, right? Every other tethered is very super casual in their killing of their tethery.
And they do kill their own counterpart, right?
Right.
Yeah. I thought so. I mean, especially the friend family where you know, it's over in like 2 seconds. There's no, I mean, and part of it is that they can't talk, but the other part of it is that they don't have this kind of like, their relationship is much less complex, I guess you could say, because Red actually kind of wants Adelaide to understand what she's done to her.
Yeah.
Whereas all of the other ones are just like, I want to kill the person so I don't have to be tethered anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing Adelaide does is, or Red does is handcuff Adelaide to the coffee table, which we learn by the end of the movie is exactly what was done to her. She was handcuffed to that bed and abandoned. So that's, I mean, yeah, she's more interested in revenge than just plain death and takeover. And you're absolutely right that like that's what I love how the Winston Duke part plays out in so many ways. First of all, I love the code switching that he does. This movie is not nearly as focused on race as Get Out is, but I think the fact that these characters are black is still kind of very important to the movie, obviously because it's part of their identity. But Winston Duke, goes out there when the family first appears, and he's talking, like he's trying to be reasonable and calm and controlled, and then the second things get serious, he grabs the bat, and then he code switches. Right, he starts talking in a much more accentuated. I don't want to call it like a black accent, but it is much more coded African American than he was speaking previously, and that we have seen him speak throughout the entirety of the movie. And I love, that's a really wonderful little detail that I love there. And it kind of shows how, I mean, one of the big thing about this movie is the different sides of people, how we have different sides of us. That's like, we've been talking very specifically about the political reading of this movie, but there is a very Jungian reading of this movie that is just about, this is just about the darkness inside ourselves that we bury to exist.
Right. Yeah. That reminds me, talking about the idea of the shadow and also talking about the idea of race, is that I think one reason why race is less important in this movie is that it's just broader than race. Race is sort of subsumed within the thing he's talking about, because like for example, I think the other examples are escaping me right now, but like there's a few moments where Native American, the Native American imagery or there are references to Native Americans and like one of them is when Adelaide's friend is like looking at a magazine and he's like, oh, look at this, isn't this beautiful, and kind of like flashes the magazine toward the camera for a second, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was like a Native American headdress image.
Or something that has that very look, but has kind of been
subsumed,
recodified.
right? And that's kind of the idea. There is like the we've taken these things, we've basically destroyed them, but we've buried the guilt and the suffering, and then we've kept the pretty. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the big one for me is the funhouse that she goes into in 1986 is Native American themed, and in the present day is Arthurian legend themed. And it looks like the same inside is still the same, right? She walks in and the same owl pops out.
Yeah,
it's the same owl. So it's the same place, but it's just been replastered over with Anglo white history, and the Native American history has been consumed and cleaned, if you will. I mean, these are the thing that I love about them is like these are not things that the movie is like yelling at you. Like that's one of the reasons why I think the subtle complexity of this movie is so much more enjoyable than Get Out to me. Is because like these are things we can, even if we didn't catch it the first time, we'll see it eventually, and then you wonder, what does that mean? What does it mean that this is a Merlin funhouse now?
Yeah.
What is that? What is it? I mean, that's a choice. He made that choice. What is that saying about the movie? What is it saying that is it just hints that Adelaide is eating strawberries when everyone else in her family is eating fast food? Is that just supposed to hint us towards her true identity? Or is that exploring something else about her, that she's only interested in natural food and not processed food? What does that mean?
Yeah. My favorite thing that's kept occurring to me is like he could have just had it be a series of staircases leading down into the underground.
Yeah.
But he chooses to have there be this long escalator, and the escalator only goes down. And
it looks like a mall escalator, right?
Yeah.
Like it looks very much like an escalator in a mall.
And it's like pristine too. Like everything is pristine.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, that's super intentional. It only goes down. It's an escalator that only goes down, meaning it's there to help you on your way down, but there's no way back up.
Yep.
And we don't actually see how Red or how Adelaide actually gets up in the first place.
Yeah.
It's I guess she gets up because she's tethered, and that's how that works.
It just works that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I tell you how uninterested I am in talking about like whether he exposited too much or not?
Sure. Yeah, let's talk about that.
I mean, we can talk about it for a second, but like, there's this kind of like meta commentary right now about like, now, I think he talked about. I think the exposition was too much at the end there.
Yeah, I mean, so let's set the scene a little bit. So the third act of the movie is the confrontation between Adelaide and Red. It is taking place in a classroom, which I think is perfect. They are in a classroom. Red is sitting at the front of the classroom and basically lays out the evil plan like she's a villain monologuing, and says, this was all a government experiment. Then the government abandoned it, and now that's why we're here. And a lot of people have a problem with a couple things with this. With one, that the way this exposition was delivered to us, and two, just the fact that this exposition was delivered to us at all. So yeah, you go ahead.
I don't care. I mean, okay, so perhaps my viewing of the movie was influenced by the fact that I got the twist a few minutes, I'll say, before it's revealed. Not like early in the movie or anything. The person walking out of the movie behind me clearly still didn't get the twist, and they were talking about it
fascinating
with their date, and we're basically having to have it explained to them. And I was this has influenced me because I'm like, look, like, maybe I would have preferred that there be less exposition. In fact, I personally would have preferred that there be no exposition.
I don't think we needed any kind of explanation for why this place existed at all.
You could do without that entire thing. But But like, I don't think it was wrong to put it in, I guess.
No.
Like it's just, and also I think, you've made the point that, how did she know that?
Right. How does she's the only one down there that can speak, so no one else can tell anything to her. How does she know this is a government experiment? Part of me thinks that's just like, it's just Red bullshitting.
Yeah.
It's just more bullshit. And it's part of her, like, I mean, I think, metaphorically, and then that's where we have to go back to the idea that the government sanctioned this and then abandoned it fits really well into our political metaphor, right?
Yeah.
That we as a government create these policies and then we abandoned people when it's convenient to. That we create these policies and then we look the other way. Kind of like the Hands Across America thing, where we create this movement that's supposed to fix the problem, and then it ends. It doesn't actually do anything, and then we just move on and we forget about it.
Bury it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's, I don't know. Like, I just keep seeing people talking about the exposition, and I'm just like, I mean, I actually, it gives you another thing to think about, right? It gives you this extra angle to think about the thing, where if he hadn't given that exposition, then absolutely there would be so many people online being like, what was the underground thing? Why were those people there?
Well, and people are still doing that. And that's, I mean, I think that gets to a point where we talk about how we think about movies, right?
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of people that are like, how was the escalator so clean? What did the bunnies eat?
Where
did the scissors come
from?
Where
did they get the costumes?
Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know, like, I've seen some people make some arguments, and I don't disagree. I don't disagree with an argument that, like, the second you say it's not just unexplained magic, you have to start questioning everything. And I was like, but you don't, because, like, are the answers to any of those questions actually going to be fulfilling towards what the movie is doing, right? Like, if there was a throwaway scene where they were like, there was like a scissor depository in the underground that they just grab the scissors from. I mean, does that fix the movie? Like, does that help the metaphor any better?
I mean, and here's the thing: is that like I'm actually happy to be like, where did the rabbits come from? I mean, yeah, sure. Let's say the government does all kinds of weird shit and pays for things that make no sense, and probably literally in real life spends millions of dollars a year like maintaining tunnels that it doesn't know why those tunnels are there and they should be closed.
Right.
Like that probably is literally happening. So the idea that the government is like providing jumpsuits and scissors to me is just like, yeah, sure. Like it works fine with the metaphor, this idea that like there's all this stuff happening and the government is completely like out of control in the sense that we don't know what they're doing, and what they're doing is probably terrible, and we have no way of finding out.
Right.
So sure, the government is feeding the bunnies.
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing with that though is when you introduce the bunnies, then you introduce a physical reason why this place is there. Like you say, there's a government did it. We introduced that. And you leave a question like, well, where did the bunnies come from, open. Then you have people after the movie saying, where did the bunnies come from? And then you have people thinking about the bunnies. And then you have people maybe thinking about, okay, well, why bunnies? And then you get this like whole conversation that erupts from this lack of information around maybe what these elements, what choosing rabbits here maybe says about what the movie's trying to do.
Yeah.
And the same with the scissors, the same with the jumpsuits, the same with the one glove on the hand. These are elements that aren't explained where they came from, and the lack of explanation or just giving you just a taste, just a morsel of explanation leads to more conversations, which leads to more understanding or at least critical thinking about what these things could mean in the movie. And I'm not even sure I've arrived to a satisfactory answer for those things. I mean, I did read that there was there's a Norwegian folklore thing that, like, I think I sent this to you. I don't remember if I did. There's some Norwegian folklore where people have dark shadow versions of themselves and they hang shears above their bed at night. So if the dark shadow version comes, they can snip it off. And I probably think Jordan Peele was reading some Norwegian folklore. I think that's probably one of reason the shears were used, as well as just being the tool that made the Hands Across America image, right?
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, I think just because I think we need to, as a film watching public, we need to say, just because a story gives me a piece of a puzzle and not the whole puzzle, means that the writing failed in some way. Like I think we've attached ourselves to logicking out in a definitive binary way what the movie's trying to say, what the movie's trying to do, what every step and every beat of the movie definitively means, that we hurt our conversations around these movies.
Yeah.
It is okay to ask the question, what did the bunnies eat?
Yeah.
That's a great question to ask. The point of that question in my mind is to not say the movie didn't answer this and therefore it's bad.
Right.
The point of that question to ask is, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, what it meant. And what did you think the bunnies mean? What did you think the bunnies ate? And what could that say about this? Like, I don't know. I just, this is to me an example of one of the things I hate about plot hole culture.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that plot holes aren't important. Plot holes are important and plot holes exist and they do hurt movies, but 90% of the things we call plot holes aren't.
Yeah. Right. I mean, for me, there's a big difference between something not being explained and something being a contradiction within the movie that that kind of breaks the story and breaks your ability to be engaged with it, because you're like, well, wait a minute, that's just logically incoherent, right? Like, like when the T-Rex shows up inside the visitor center at the end of Jurassic Park and bites the raptor, like maybe part of your brain later on the 97th viewing is like, how did it get in there? And,
right.
and how was it silent when we've made such a big point of it not being quiet? But who cares?
Right.
Number one, who cares how the T-Rex got in there? Number two, you can just say, I don't know, somehow, and it's fine.
Right. I mean, yeah, you're right. That's the definitive answer, right?
Yeah.
How did they get the jumpsuits? I don't know.
Yeah.
But they did.
Yeah.
So
somehow it and it doesn't, and again, like, it doesn't contradict anything that has been established. It's not like the story isn't undermining itself, and thus you really should just like I mean, I think I am. I was going to say, I don't want to tell people how to watch movies, but like on some level, we do need to be taught how to understand stories, right? And like,
sure.
I think a key thing to understanding stories that like I think people need to be taught and need to understand is like, it's not necessarily a good instinct to want to like break the movie until it stops working. Like you should actually be thinking about ways in which it is working on different levels instead.
Sure. I like that a lot. And I think that goes to this, something we hear a lot is everyone has different levels at which their suspension of disbelief is destroyed, right? And I think that and again, just like you said, I don't want to tell people how to consume art, but I do think if you find yourself at a moment where something like this shatters your suspension of disbelief because your mind is filled with all these questions that the movie doesn't care to answer, and therefore you're like, well, then this world doesn't make sense to me anymore. I think the thing to do is inspect that. I think it is look at that and say, why did that happen? Why did this? So someone else is talking about this movie and saying, no, I don't think that stuff's important to the movie, and you feel that it is. And then inspect that. I mean, that's one of the things that I think this movie can do for you. Like, don't just inspect the movie, inspect yourself, inspect how you consume art.
Yeah, right.
And see if maybe there's something going on internally that is causing that to happen.
Yeah.
Or some level of expectation for the art you're consuming that is causing that very easy snap of that suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, I love that. That's a fantastic way of framing it, because then that actually begins a whole series of even more interesting questions that are somewhat tangential to the movie you just watched, but also somewhat related, because you can ask things like, okay, well, if I believe that this movie was a fairy tale and not realistic, does that change the fact that my suspension of disbelief broke? And if the answer is yes, then you can say, why is that? Isn't that interesting?
Right.
And like I think someone, who was it recently I was reading, where like just the whole idea of suspension of disbelief is wrong, because because we don't, when you're watching Star Trek, you're not you don't actually believe that there are people in the 24th century flying around on fast and light starships.
Yeah.
You're always aware you're watching a show. At best, you'll get swept up in the drama of it and just sort of become an observer more than a person watching a movie. But it's not like you're believing that it's really happening. The term is actually wrong. Like I'm not making this up. It's more like when people say that it breaks their suspension of disbelief, it's more like something about the movie has caused them to question the world of the movie and its coherence. And that doesn't always mean that the movie's broken.
Sure.
So
yeah, I like that. I like that way to look at it a lot, because you're absolutely right. Like I do not cry because sad things happen in movie because I actually believe that the characters are real. That's not really how empathy works. Like it's just, you don't have to believe that person's real to feel an emotion towards it.
Right.
And I mean, I'm never like not aware that I'm watching a film. You're absolutely right. That is a bad term. We should come up with a better term for it.
I agree. Let's work on that.
We'll workshop that. There'll be an episode in the future.
Cool.
Is there anything else you wanted to say about this movie? I feel like we've just scratched the surface, man. I mean, there's so much detail. We haven't even talked about Jeremiah 11:11, which is this recurring motif throughout the movie of 11:11, which of course it lines up with the whole doubles and pairs thing. But not only is the guy the guy holding the Bible verse sign that is one of the first one to be tethered, which I want to talk about that a bit, and then we'll move on to the other 11:11s thing. Sorry, because this like, so she sees the guy, at a young age. We get to see the guy holding, the homeless man holding up the sign, and then one of the first things we see when we go back to the beach in the present day is this man has died and is being put onto an ambulance, and he's still got his sign. And then the youngest boy sees him standing on the beach. And we learn later that he is the tethered version. And actually, if you look at and see, and I missed this, I had to read about this, I didn't see, but he is wearing the homeless man's trench coat, and you can see that under the trench coat is the jumper. And all we see is his hand, and his hand is bleeding, and we don't know why at the time, but that's because he totally just killed his other version of himself. And then now he's put himself in the Hands Across America position, like he's standing there with his hands out, like waiting for other people to come take his hands. But he's like a day early. And he's the only one out there. And then when Adelaide goes to get her kid, he's gone. So in my headcanon, he just like got super excited and jumped the gun.
Yeah.
And then they were like, no, you're too early. It's like, oh shit, I'll go hide.
Yeah. Well, it's perfect that he would be the one who would be too early, because his doppelganger is the one who's like presaging the end of everything. And so he's like, yeah, let's get to it. Come on. And I love that at the end of the movie they show him and he has this just ecstatic smile on his face. Which is really I guess a lot of the tethered display a wide range of emotion actually. But yeah, he's so happy. They've done it. They've finally done it. They've joined Hands Across America.
So that's a good thing to talk about, I think. Oh, sorry. No, we need to talk about all the instances 11. I get distracted.
I don't even remember. I don't think I remember. I think I wasn't noticing them until the movie was like, pay attention to the 11:11s. And
it's all over the place.
And then a lot of them had already kind of passed me by at that point.
Yeah. The alarm clock on that is the one that it's most paid attention to, right? Because they both comment on how it's 11:11. And the ambulance has 11:11. It's the ambulance 11:11. The baseball game that they're watching on television, the score is 11 to 11. I think one of the kids' shirts has an 11 on it. It's everywhere, man.
Yeah, I can't think of any more right now either. But yeah, right. I mean, there's a lot of and she's talking about coincidences, right? And I think that's another part of the movie that makes me think that she's not fully aware of who she is, because she, when she's talking to her husband about the coincidences, she's like talking about how it's like a feeling, like someone's coming for her, and she should actually know that her doppelganger is down there. But I sort of take, especially like kind of based on the performance, take it literally that she doesn't actually remember that her doppelganger is down there. She just she has a terrible feeling, and that's kind of how her mind is communicating it to her. But,
yeah, I like that. So, Hands Across America.
Yeah.
This is one part of the movie that I haven't really been able to cleanly get a read on that I'm comfortable with, because obviously the instigation for this is that is the shirt that Red was wearing under the Thriller shirt. So when she's tied down there, that's the only shirt she has, and she kind of grapples on to the central idea of Hands Across America, and that's kind of part of her instigating factor for the plan, right? But
wait, are people saying that it was a thriller? Is the Thriller a joke about Get Out? Sorry, that just occurred to me. Sorry to derail. Anyway,
what do you mean?
Well, like how people were saying Get Out was a thriller and not a horror movie.
It might be. It
Okay.
might be. That'd be good. People are saying about this movie too. By the way, this is not a horror movie.
Okay,
it's
fine.
Or it's elevated horror. I'm so sick of this shit. Like, why are we so afraid to call horror movies horror?
Yeah, I was scared, folks. It's a horror movie.
Anyway, yeah. So, I mean, like, on the one hand, you see this is a woman who is like basically almost still kind of a child, because she's like been a child her whole life, and it's a very childish like part of a plan. It's like, we're going to make this big statement by having everyone across America hold hands, but instead of doing it just metaphorically, that the actual Hands Across America thing was not going to literally have people across the entire country join hands, with just like little sects of it throughout the country. But it takes that literally and says, we're going to literally do that. I haven't gotten to a point where I'm comfortable understanding what the movie's saying about that part, and I'm curious what you thought.
I guess I just kind of parsed it automatically as this is their way of claiming the country back, to say like, I need to watch it again, because during the very first scene, when it's the television commercial, basically commercial for Hands Across America, I can't remember the language, but they're saying what Hands Across America is and what it is for, and I feel like that is a code for what Red thinks she's doing with Hands Across America. Like, we're gonna join hands and we're gonna pull the downtrodden up with us, or something like that. I don't know, but again, it's one of those things where I feel like watching this movie a second time is going to be a completely different experience.
I can't wait. I really wish we could have done this before we recorded, but oh well. Yeah, I mean, I'm there with you. I mean, I've seen some readings that people talk about, like, get political about it, that the shadow people are dressed in red, and they've built a wall of red in America. Like, so there's been people talking about that there was some specifically Republican imagery going on there.
Yeah,
I don't know how comfortable I feel with that.
The idea that the tethered are the Trump voters coming up from where they've been overlooked. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I don't think that was intended. No. But that kind of does work as like one facet of the gem of sure. like look, it's about overlooked people onto which we have dumped suffering and then ignored. Sure, that does characterize a lot of the people in in the people who lost their jobs due to automation and so forth, and just general technological change. Fine, that works for them too. It works for any group who the world has kind of moved on from. And you can look at tons of different groups of people. I mean, almost anyone fits that definition if you twist it right.
Yeah, I mean, Breitbart said it was an anti-socialism movie, in which the classic nuclear American family overcomes the evil liberals trying to take over.
Sure, Breitbart.
Sure,
We're all welcoming with interpretations here. Everyone, as long as you're appreciating the movie.
The thing about that interpretation, though, and I think I sent this to you, was like they said that this is a perfect family. They've got no deep dark underbelly, and I'm like, no, but like they literally do. I'm not like literally.
Yeah. She has a terrible secret. That's what
right.
That's what the movie's about.
It's just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I could definitely see how someone could get to that read where, like, I mean, like, one of their big points was, well, they're wearing red, like communism, so they must be the communist uprising. Look, they all want to join hands. So I get that read. I do not think that's what the filmmaker was going for there, but I get how you could arrive at that. But to say but to like present this as like the perfect like example of the perfect American dream family, saying that the movie was doing that. I mean, I think the movie is pretty explicit about the family and their consumerism. Like Winston Duke's character is specifically jealous of their friends, who we didn't even really talk about much. Elizabeth Moss and Tim Heidecker, who played Kitty and Josh, their friends, because he got a boat, but his boat's better, and he got a new car. And these are both families that are very well off. They have summer homes, right? I mean, like, yes. His friend is more well off than he is, but they're still both doing pretty good. If you have a summer home, you're doing all right.
Yeah.
And I think that the movie like is not very subtle in how it's supposed to be disparaging of that. So to say that this is like the perfect like nuclear like yay capitalism family that it doesn't want to critique that at all, I think is a misread of the movie. But do whatever you want.
I mean, I feel like this is my favorite thing about the movie is that it is this like parable like metaphor where you can really just chew it over endlessly and point it at all kinds of different things. And then within the movie, textually, it kind of gestures at consumerism, class, race, genocidal colonialism, politics. Sure, I kind of, it's kind of in there, but it doesn't. It's not saying like each of these things or any one of these things is what this movie is about. What it's saying is, here are some examples of the kinds of things that you can apply this concept of the shadow, the suppressed suffering.
Yeah, the Jungian, awfulness.
Yeah. And
I said Jungian before, didn't I?
You did, but
that's embarrassing.
But now you've corrected it without having it to be pointed out, so it's fine. But yeah, like that's what I love is the movie's giving you ideas of how you could apply the metaphor, and then it's just saying, all right, now you kind of do what you want with it. I'm not.
Yeah, and perhaps part of the argument of the movie is what you see in this says something about you, and inspect that. Like a lot of like people come to this movie and they like it because it seems to agree with their specific politic, right? Like if you are very anti-capitalism, if you are very anti-consumerism, you come to this movie and you say, yes, look at that. This movie is proof positive of the evils of capitalism.
Even Jordan Peele agrees with me.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then we have people at Breitbart, and those people suck. Like I don't want to give them any kind of legitimate credence because I think they're terrible people. But the point is, they come to the same movie and they love it just as much as people on the left love it. But they say, "Ha, Jordan Peele gets it. It's nothing to do with race. It's just America versus the evil left." And I think the thing that we should be doing, regardless of what your political beliefs are, regardless of what your societal beliefs are, regardless of where you sit in society, is look at the lens with which we examine this movie and what that lens says about us. Because that's the name of the movie. It's about us.
Right. I mean, I think we should cap off the conversation by, it's us meaning that family, but also she says we're Americans.
Right.
It's about us.
Yes.
So great movie.
Yeah. Amazing movie. Great conversation. This is one of those ones that I want to get it on Blu-ray and then come back and talk about it with you again, on a full episode, because I think there's so much detail there. We didn't really talk about how music was used in this movie, which I think I've Got 5 on It is such a wonderful song here because, Matt, that literally means I'll pay for half of the drugs. I'll go in for half, which just fits perfectly with our double-sided thing,
Oh, okay.
And best use of fuck the police ever.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff there where it was stuff my brain was not even noticing because I was too terrified. But yeah, I'm gonna love rewatching it and noticing those things.
Yeah, I didn't even talk about all the hints at what's going on with Red.
Yeah.
Or
absolutely,
because she's not on the beat. She's doing do the beat with me, and she's
off.
She's off.
Yeah. No, I mean that's the thing is there's actually a lot of hints that something is off with her, but putting that together with the idea that she's the wrong one, it just takes. It took for me until the movie reminds you for the third time that that she couldn't talk when she came back.
Yeah.
And then I'm oh, she can't talk. And the only one who can talk of the tethered is her doppelganger. And her voice sounds like she hasn't talked in 30 years.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
But that was, I don't know.
Well, when she kills one of the twins,
she's growling and stuff.
She growls and she sounds just like the tethered.
Yeah.
And should have been a hint. But my internal explanation for that during the movie was maybe Peele is demonstrating to us how easy it is for us to become the worst part of ourselves.
And that was what I thought because she's wearing white.
Yeah.
White undershirt with a white, I don't know, sweater on top of it or whatever. And it's increasingly bloodstained over the course of the movie as she's sort of becoming one of them. And I'm you're getting dragged down to their level. And it's no, it's more her nature is being revealed.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that is Us. Gosh, I love that movie. Can't wait to see it again. Many, many times. Maybe we'll do a Deconstructing Peele when he's got some more movies.
Yeah. That'd be great. Oh, no. Then we have to watch all of his shorts. Wouldn't that be terrible?
Oh, no. I have to watch Key and Peele again.
Yeah, right.
Shucks. Doof. All right. Matt, let's talk about television.
Yeah. Television. What is that anymore?
Nobody knows. So this Monday, Apple did one of their big press conferences where everyone watches on TV to find out what new stuff we're going to spend all our money on. They revealed a bunch of different stuff, and they're kind of pivoting to services because they have sold iPhones to every human being on the planet. Mm-hmm. And they got to keep those earnings rising. Yeah. It's not just about sales, it's about growth in sales.
Right.
So they're kind of pivoting to services to where they can provide things. So they're going to have a new service. They already have their music service. They are introducing they're basically a bank now. They've got a credit card coming. And one of the big things they did is announce their streaming service. And we knew this was coming for a while. Apple had been kind of quietly working on their streaming service for a long time. They had been bringing in big names. And this was their official unveiling. And this was a little weird, Matt. So first they introduced something called Apple TV Channels. And Apple TV is a piece of hardware. I don't know. You know about it, right? The little Apple TV
Yeah,
box.
I think I've been to people's houses who have those. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a piece of hardware that allows you to stream through on your television. So you hook it up with your TV, you download Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, all the stuff on there, and of course you can rent or buy movies through iTunes there as well. It's also an app that's on your phone. It basically deals with all your movie and TV purchasing and that stuff. So they are adding stuff to this that is basically going to be like, you want HBO? You don't have to get HBO through your television provider. You can buy HBO through Apple TV. So you pay your subscription to Apple and they work it out, and then you can watch HBO. Same with Showtime, FX, all the other channels. Basically, you're able to purchase channels individually, and they want this to be your cable box, right? They don't want you, like, people are cutting the cord. People aren't doing cable anymore. They want this to be your cable. And on top of that, they introduced what they're calling Apple TV Plus, which is their streaming service. Now, they didn't tell us the price. They didn't show us much of anything. It was basically 45 minutes of famous people getting up on stage and giving elevator pitches for their shows. And then we saw like a 30-second sizzle reel at the end. There's some interesting shows in there, but I wanted to talk to you about the state of TV, because like I really expected Apple to kind of swoop in and like show in a very Apple way why the way everyone else had been doing it was wrong.
Yeah.
And actually we've got this better way of doing it, and we're going to show you this is how you should do TV now. And that's really not what they're doing here.
Yeah.
They're basically just making another service. They want to kind of consolidate services. They want everything to go through their app, but that's not like, it's not like that. The Apple TV channels thing is not considerably different from what Amazon Prime already does. You can already buy HBO through Amazon Prime. You can already buy Showtime through Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
So
I think we'll just have to see, honestly. Like, my feeling is it may end up having been like one of those master strokes where they basically kind of lock you in, because it's like, oh, you if you buy the Apple TV thing, then you get this, and now you don't need any of that other stuff anymore, because like the
Sure.
reason we all have like Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu is that you can't always get the thing that you're after. And
Right.
if Apple TV Plus can actually make it so that, oh, sure, you can get whatever you're after through Apple TV Plus, then that's pretty much what they did for iTunes. Because my recollection is that iTunes was this massive coup where they came in, they used the size of power, the size of Apple, and therefore the bargaining power and the reach of Apple, the number of people with Apple devices, to say to all of the record companies, give us an incredible deal on your full catalog. Let us sell through our Apple store, or you're going to be cut out and you're going to be screwed. And it worked. And they made enormous amount of money. I don't think they can do the same exact move here, but they might be able to do a similar move and it might work out for them. But right now,
Maybe.
I mean, that's the thing. I agree with you. Right now, I don't see it. Right now, it just seems like that joke where it's like there's 43 different standards. I want to create a new standard that consolidates all of them, and now there's 44 different standards.
Right. I mean, that's the thing, is like I have an Apple TV in my bedroom. That's what we use to connect to the all the different services in my bedroom. It already has Netflix on it. And I have subscriptions to all these different things, but I'm still going to need a subscription to Netflix. I'm like, yes, I can access Amazon Prime stuff through my Apple TV on the new Apple TV channels, and it's all integrated into its app, right? Which is easy, I guess. But I already have an Amazon Prime app on my phone. Like, is it so much easier to just have one app versus have two apps, right?
Yeah.
And on my box, when I search for Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on my box, even if I'm not in the Amazon Prime app, my search result says, oh, that's an Amazon Prime. You want to launch the app? Like, so it's already kind of in one place. Like, one of the noticeable things about this presentation is Netflix was not anywhere near it, because they went to Netflix and said, hey, you want to do this with us? And Netflix said, fuck you. No. So it's never going to integrate with Netflix in any kind of meaningful way because Netflix is not interested. And they're so late to this game now that I just don't see I don't see how this will work in any kind of conceivable way. But I mean, I've been proven wrong before about Apple, and the thing about Apple is they can lose money on this project for ever because they have so much cash. Like so making money on their Apple TV Plus service, like Steven Spielberg's making a show for them. Is that going to get people to subscribe? I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Do they care? Like that's the thing. That's what you wonder about, right? Like the only thing that I'm confused about with this is Amazon Prime. You pay $10 a month or whatever it is now. I don't remember. You get free shipping. You get Amazon's entire music. Like you can listen to music through Amazon. That's something I think they do a bad job advertising.
Yeah.
But you have a Prime subscription. You get like music, and you get all the Prime stuff, right? Hulu has some deals with live TV. So if you have a Hulu Plus subscription, you can watch some TV shows they're airing right now, and you get their originals for their price. Netflix has all their originals, but also has a bunch of other stuff too. It seems like Apple TV Plus, the actual subscription service part of this deal, is just going to be their original content. And you start to wonder, it's like, okay, is that how much is it gonna, like, they didn't tell me how much it's gonna cost, but like if Netflix is $14 a month and I get Netflix originals plus a bunch of movies plus a bunch of other TV shows, I get to watch Friends, and Apple's the same price, why would I want to do that?
Yeah.
If I just get their original stuff.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm certainly not going to run out there to buy this. And I mean, I don't have an Apple TV. This doesn't compel me to get an Apple TV, and certainly doesn't compel me to get the service. But I'm probably not the target audience because I also haven't made any effort to watch Star Trek Discovery, even though like that. Like if I were going to be getting subscription services, that would be the one. So, yeah, I mean, my prediction is that this just becomes like another one of the subscription services that you can get and doesn't take over. And I think that, like you said, that you've been wrong about Apple before, and like like everybody always underestimates Apple. But I think that a lot of the underestimating Apple was back in the day when Steve Jobs was in charge and he would make these genius level moves. And whereas now these aren't genius strategic plays. They're just like, well, what's
they're
the
just
obvious?
Iterating, right?
Yeah, they're just like, where do we spend our giant pile of money? Oh, I guess we do this now because it seems like that's what all the other giant tech companies are doing. So
the tech companies discovered the concept of cable television, and they think that it's this brilliant brand new thing. But it's just, when cable came out, it was like, okay, you have your basic channels, and then you want this cable channel, you can buy that cable channel, and it costs this much a month. You want this cable channel, you can buy that cable channel, and it costs this much a month. And then, of course, years down the road, we started doing packages, right, where you got all of them in one big bundle. But that's not how cable started, and this is what we've done, basically. It's like you want a Netflix cable channel, you want Amazon, you want a Hulu, you want a CBS All Access, Disney Plus is coming out. It's just cable again.
Right. Well, I think Tim Apple probably knows that this is not a revolutionary new thing, but obviously Apple has to market everything as if they think it's a revolutionary new thing.
Right. And I think I understand their need for services because, like you said, Apple is dominating the smartphone market. They're not going to just suddenly tap a new market of smartphone users at this point, right? Like the iPhone's been out for over 10 years. It's just iteration at this point. Like they're not just going to redo anything.
Yeah. Right.
They've done tablets. What can they do? And then their answer to this is we're going to do services. We didn't talk about it, but they have an arcade game service thing as well, which compared to what Google released a couple weeks ago, it looks kind of shitty. Honestly, but
yeah, we should talk about the Stadia thing maybe next time.
Yeah, I need to actually like dive in and look at that because I haven't done any. I didn't watch the presentation, so
Yeah, I watched the presentation. I found it impressive. But we can go into it maybe next week or something.
Yeah,
But
that sounds good.
Um,
Yeah, so I just like I'm at my breaking point, right? Like I still have full cable because I watch a lot of TV. I also have Netflix. I have Amazon Prime. I'm using my sister's Hulu. I don't want to get anything else. I really don't. I'm at the point like I'm spending a lot of money, and I don't want other things. And I think a lot of America is going to feel that way. So I don't know. I don't know what the long-term plan here is for like these industries have to recognize that people are stretched right now, and the reason people got rid of cable is because they found that they had all these other services, and people are at a point where, like you're a Star Trek fan. You're a huge Star Trek fan. I don't need to see this. I'm a huge Steven Spielberg fan. Do I really need to see his show? M. Night Shyamalan's making a show for Apple. I love him. I mean, I got so much TV to like. Am I gonna really? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is this maybe gonna be packaged in a Blu-ray in 2 years that I can just buy that?
So Apple TV by itself is just a box, and you don't have to pay for it ongoing, right?
Correct.
So I wonder if like they're like, I don't know. This probably doesn't work, and obviously I have no idea what the numbers are. But like, it would be a really clever trick of them to be like, and now our streaming service is included for anyone who has an Apple TV.
Yeah,
and then people might actually be like, oh, that actually makes the Apple TV an even better deal than it already is. And then they go out and they buy the Apple TV product, which probably does have a huge, benefit to Apple. And then once you're in their system, they can do that thing they always do, where you're in their walled garden and now you're trapped.
True.
But that doesn't seem to be what they're doing. So
no, I mean, that's what the weird thing about this announcement is. They didn't really give any details.
Mm-hmm.
They said fall this year, no price, nothing. In my opinion, they're going service oriented. Bundle your services, man.
Yeah.
Give me a News Plus subscription. Give me an Arcade subscription. Give me your already existing Apple Music subscription, and give me this TV Plus subscription for a cheap price. And that might convince some people to go for it.
Yeah. The news thing I actually thought was more interesting than the TV Plus thing. Honestly, I was like, because I'm always like feeling like I should be reading like legitimate news sources, but they all want my money, and I don't have that. It's not worth that much to me. But like if some really nicely bundled thing like that, I could be like, oh yeah, sure, fine, whatever. I'm getting a lot of value.
Yeah.
So,
although let's be honest here, Matt, what's the difference between a magazine, the digital magazine, and a website?
I mean, I don't know. Probably nothing.
It's nothing. It's just pretty pictures.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even actually know what their offering was. I just know that it was like supposedly.
It's a lot of magazines and some papers.
Okay.
For
I don't know.
$10 a month.
I mean, obviously, it wasn't that compelling to me because I didn't bother to actually look into it. But it caught my interest more than the Apple TV Plus announcement did.
Yeah, that's because turns out when you're making television shows, your announcement should include some television in it.
Yeah. Like you said, the fact that it didn't mention pricing, I'm like, I can't possibly know if I'm interested unless you're going to tell me what it costs.
Yeah, I was sitting here going, why did they do this right now? And I think their quarterly earnings statement is coming out. And I think that's why. Because they need to show their investors that they've got plans for more money. And that's why they did this right now. I'm
sure you're right. I'm 100% sure you're right.
They obviously weren't ready to do it right now, but they had to. So, good job, guys. $1 trillion company right there. All right, guys, that is all we had for you guys this week. If you have any opinions on us or on Apple or just the state of streaming television right now, how many streaming platforms are you going to pay for? Let us know via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
Also, check out our website, doofmedia.com, for all the other shows we do, including our book club, which is meeting, I'm saying tomorrow, but if you're listening to this the day it came out, tonight at 9:30 p.m. on March 29th, we are talking about Red Seas Under Red Skies, which is the second book in the Gentleman Bastard series. I can't wait to talk about this book, Matt. I think it's going to be a good one. So attend.
Yeah, it's going to be a real fun one. And if you want to support our stuff, head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia. We are not a $1 trillion company, so $1 a month or anything else you can afford really helps us to keep making content.
But
like
our
this.
quarterly earnings statement is coming up. Please help.
Please. We got to inflate the numbers any way we can. Also, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, guys, we will see you all next week.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.